Hey guys, welcome back to another episode here at the Abundance Leap podcast. I have my good friend Igor on the line. We've already done some business together. We've come from a very similar background. I'm just so inspired at what you've been able to do and how many people you've been able to help along their path and starting their entrepreneurship journey. So it's so glad to have you on, and thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure. A long time coming. I'm really excited. I've been watching you as well for a long time. Really impressed with your work and the impact you made in the community. So this is going to be exciting.
Right on. Well, let's go back to the beginning. I know you're doing big things now. You have a lot of different online businesses. You have a book out, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But tell me about really your introduction to entrepreneurship. Were your parents entrepreneurs? Did you grow up around entrepreneurs? Did you go to college? Like, what was your start and what really attracted you to this lifestyle?
You know, I want to say that I kind of stumbled into entrepreneurship as a result of reading Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad because I was on a different path. I was at the time going through the Air Force Academy. So I was like wearing proper uniform. I was about 17 or 18 years old. It was before my Army service. And the path I was on was really just study hard, get good grades, you'll get a good job, and everything's going to be okay. And the reason I was on that path is because my dad is a mechanical engineer. My mom is a music teacher. My grandpa from my mom's side is a school teacher, and his wife was a nurse. On my dad's side, his mom was a school principal, and his dad was working at a factory, a furniture factory. So for the most part, there was no entrepreneurial exposure. However, if I really dig deep down into my childhood, I do remember a period of time that my dad, after he retired from military, actually went into like a little bit of a spell as an entrepreneur, starting his own tire shop, and later another, like close to the tire shop, he also built like a tiny little sort of, not a restaurant really, because you couldn't sit there, but it was like a kiosk where you could walk up and grab like a kebab or something and eat it standing up next to it. So that was like his entrepreneurial spell, but it failed because at some point he loaned about $10,000. Now we're talking, this is Ukraine. I was born and raised in Ukraine back in the 90s. So he borrows $10,000 from a local mobster, whose name was Nikolai Makarenko, but his nickname was Makar. And he invests with a couple of buddies of his into something called a kolkhoz, which is, at the time, was like a state-owned farm. But because the Soviet Union fell apart, now these farms got privatized. And so there was this guy who was like the CEO. So they gave him the money, and he was supposed to cultivate the farm, get some equipment going, and so they could, sell produce to restaurants and businesses. And that guy just took all the money and blew it on, gambling, hookers, a nice car, etc. So now my dad is out $10,000. Now, just to understand the scope of how much money that is, we ended up selling our car. We had an American car, which at the time was like a big deal in Ukraine. It was a Ford Sierra. We sold all of our furniture, and we sold the apartment we were living in, and we moved out to Israel. We paid off Makar the 10 grand that my dad owed him, and we had only $1,000 left to our name.
Wow.
And so we just got on the plane, went to Israel because of our Jewish connection. And from that point forward, my family's life kind of went down certain spiral. We pretty much lived in debt until the moment I succeeded as an entrepreneur. And so the first thing I've done is I paid off all of my parents' debt, credit card debt, loans that they've had, the everything pretty much. And now they're debt free. They actually live in an apartment that I bought for them, so they don't have to worry about paying rent anymore for the rest of their lives. And yeah, that was, the reason I believe I became an entrepreneur is because at some point in my, childhood, I was watching my dad be an entrepreneur. And I think one time my mom was telling me that when I was a kid, whenever anyone would ask me what I want to become, I think she says that I said to people that I wanted to be the boss. I think I had it in me. But yeah, the path I was on was completely different. The path I was on was go to school, get a good job. And that is because my dad failed in business. That is because my mom was very much a teacher in a mindset of like an employee, as well as her entire family. No one was self-employed in her family. So, when I was going to the academy, and Rich Dad Poor Dad came across my desk, and I read that book, and I was like, what do you mean the richest people in the world aren't the ones who get the best grades in school? What do you mean the richest people in the world don't actually work for someone else? And they start arguing, what is a business? I don't have a business idea. I don't have any sense. I don't have any money. I can't really start a business. So that book led me into not online marketing, but network marketing first.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was a gamer, I loved playing video games. I had like a group that I was a part of online. At the time, the internet was just getting going. Still you had to hook up your telephone to get online. I kind of liked the idea of making money from my computer, and so I started looking into network marketing at first, and then failed with that for a while, for a couple of years, I'd say. And then I switched over to something that people now know as affiliate marketing. And then I put a twist on it with something called e-farming, which we'll touch on in a bit. And that is what really kicked me off and really just allowed me to skyrocket my income and start making these leaps from, taking my monthly salary, making it my daily income or weekly income, and then taking my annual income, making it my monthly income, and so on and so forth.
Wow. What a story. I'm glad it had more of a happy ending after, hearing your father borrowing money from a mobster. I was like, man, I hope nobody lost any fingers in the process.
Yeah, my dad was always good with him. Like he always knew a way to have a conversation and walk away on his own 2 feet.
Yeah.
But he had to pay him back. Like all he did was he negotiated an extension. He did not. I don't think he had to pay any additional interest because again, my dad was always a likable guy. But I remember the day that people started walking into our apartment, just people I never, like strangers I'd never seen before. And I was like, walking up to my mom and be like, what's going on? And she's like, not now. We're selling the apartment. Not now. I was like, what? We're selling the apartment? And then one day, it was a summer day. Actually, it was just about flipping the dial to summer. It was May 31st. A huge, so I lived in this, in Ukraine, I lived in the classic Soviet block neighborhood where you have these big block buildings facing each other. And in between, there's the area where all the kids go with swing sets and the sandbox and everything. And so one, afternoon, you got this really big bus just riding into the neighborhood, like very unusual, never happens. Very few people had cars at the time in my neighborhood because it was a really poor neighborhood, and let alone like a really good, like solid looking Volvo bus, like with a TV and everything. It's like, wow, like it's like a spaceship. And so I had no idea that bus was coming from me. As it turns out, soon lots of our friends and family arrived, and my mom was calling me. We lived on the 5th floor, so she would open the window and be like, Igor. So she called me in. She's like, hey, I got you some clothes here. Go change. I was like, why? We're going somewhere? Yeah, we're going to Israel. What? What? Yeah, so that was the day we moved. That was the last day I saw any of my friends, any of my family members back who's still in Ukraine. And it was very sudden. And it's because we had to go look for a better life. You know what they say, you move countries only if everything is really good or everything is really bad. So back then, everything was really bad. We had to move.
Wild. So you guys got on the bus. That bus took you to Israel. You never looked back, never went back.
Yeah, it
started the new life.
Airport, got on a plane, landed in Israel, got the new passports, and now we're in a different country in a language we don't speak. Language is actually right to left and not left to right. It has no vowels. People are just yelling at each other. They put us in a transit van, and then they take us to a small town called Arad, right next to the Dead Sea. So if anyone listening ever been to the Dead Sea, most likely they stopped in Arad. There's a really cool burger place called Musa. That's pretty popular. And yeah, a new chapter of our life started, and it started really bad because my dad, 6 months after we moved, my dad felt pain in the chest, went to see his doctor in the clinic. Doctor says something's really off with your EKG. You need to get to the hospital fast. The nearest hospital is 40 minutes away. So he gets on the bus, goes to the hospital, walks into the ER and says, here's my EKG. And my doctor said, like, here's a letter from my doctor. They immediately rush him into the OR and do a double bypass on him. And that pretty much renders him kind of useless. Like, he couldn't really get and hold on to a job ever since. He would get him like an occasional security guard job, the kind that you sit in the chair all day. And the problem with these gigs is that they only hire you for about 8 months at a time. Then they have to fire you for 3 months, and then they invite you back so they don't have to give you seniority or benefits. And that was like my dad. Now, my mom, she basically pretty much worked at factories and facilities because that's where you don't really need to use your language, because she didn't have any language skills. You just use your head and your hands. We kind of started sinking deeper and deeper in debt. And, the funny thing about Israel that people don't know, people know that Israel is a really cool country with one of the highest GDP per capita, and that we produce lots of software products, etc. But what they don't know is that for the most part, people live with a negative bank balance. Like, it's a normal thing in Israel. So our bank balance went from positive, like plus 1 or 2,000, down to minus 3,000, minus 5,000. And eventually we were actually constantly at a level of about minus 13 to 15,000. So a paycheck would come in, it would get us back to minus 8, for example, and then it would be sliding back down. Now, anytime there was any kind of issue, health issue, car breaks down, something to fix around the house, unexpected, invite to someone's wedding, anything at all, we go deeper. Yeah. By the time that I finally was able to bail my parents out, we were at minus 32 consistent. It was like, I'm not sure why the bank kept allowing us to live that way, but that was the reality. And
that was going to be my next question, because here you get negative a couple $100 and they're like, no, you're cut off. Like, you obviously cannot keep money in your bank account. So by the,
my guess is that they just kept making money off of interest or something.
Yeah, must have been.
And like I said, everyone lives like that. Everybody lives like that over there.
Wow, I didn't know that. And how old are you at the time? Are you able to start working? Are you going to school? Like, what are you doing at this point?
So at this point, like throughout, when I moved to Israel, I just turned 12. And by the time my family is deep in debt, they enrolled me into the Air Force Academy. Now, for 2 reasons. One reason, my dad actually graduated the Suvorov Academy in Moscow back in like the 70s. So he was like a proper officer in the Soviet army, and he got out of the army only after the Soviet Union fell apart, because there was no point staying. It was just everybody was stealing everything. And so my dad had that army background. And at the same time, we didn't have any money. So to get good education, which was pretty much a standard in my family, like get good education was like, there's no way but to do it because of all the teachers and school principals in my bloodline. Basically, they were looking for cheap education options. And the thing about the Air Force Academy, the reason kids get sent there at the age of 16 is because the army, the Israeli army, actually subsidizes your education. So rather than paying $15,000, $25,000, $30,000, not dollars, but shekels, which is about divide by 3 approximately per year for the education, you pay maybe like 10% of that for the whole year. And then the commitment that you're making at the age of 16, as if you know anything about life at all, you have to sign a contract saying that you will give the Israeli army an extra 4 years of military service on top of the 3 years that you're that are mandatory for you to give them. So they invest in you now, you have to give back later. And of course, I signed the piece of paper. I had no idea what I was signing. My parents signed the piece of paper, and they sent me to the academy, which, was great education. I ended up graduating with flying colors, even though at the time I was already kind of aware of the fact that I don't want to stay on this path. But, I started it, I finished it. I graduated well. I was one of the top students in my class, but it was just not me anymore. Like, I realized that I wanted more freedom. I wanted to have more, like, I'll give an example, like the tipping point for me, it's basically 14 years of education. So 12 years is like the mandatory standard. And then 2 extra years is if like, it's not really college, but it's sort of like postgraduate. I don't know what do you call it. And so in those 2 years, I had to do like a project on an actual army base that was nearby, about 50 miles away from where I was living. So just get on a bus and go there. And so the thing I had to do is me and my classmate, we were building, these black boxes that they install on the planes. So there's a special kind of black box that goes on the jet fighters, and we were building the software and wiring for the black box for an F-16 jet as our end of year project for graduation. And while there, I actually got to meet a bunch of guys from the academy who graduated 3, 4, 5 years earlier than me. So I got to take a look at what my life will be like in a few years, okay?
Mm-hmm.
These were miserable, broke, complaining, kind of walking, slouching like that with the head down. These were not, men and women that I wanted to become. They were still living with their parents. They were still saving up money for a beat down car of some kind. They were, at the best trying to build some plans what they're going to do after the Army service. And all of them, without exception, were planning to go invest another 3 to 4 to 5 to 8 years in studying, like going to universities. So they would be only starting their life, like properly starting their life, like 30s, in their early 30s. I was like, guys, that's too much time. And for what? So you can get a job with a company car and a company cell, in like an engineering position, like in some military firm. For example, if you're familiar with Iron Dome, the rocket anti-rocket system that is currently protecting Israel from all the Hamas rockets that are being fired over at them, that is built by a company called Ariel. So that company was actually the number one company where all of my classmates wanted to work at, because they build weapons, they've got lots of opportunity, there's lots of government funding there. So their dream was to get into that job, either that or HP or Microsoft or Intel or AMD. Like, these are just massive companies, right? I just didn't connect with that. I was like, but that's not really life. That's like 9 to 5. You're a slave. You have to spend more time in your car driving to and from work than you will with your kids or your family. Like, that's really not it. I look at guys like Robert Kiyosaki and, lots of similar, people in similar positions. And I was like, wow, now that's a life. Deciding which Ferrari I want to buy today, now that's a good decision I can be making today, rather than the decision of, do I wear, this uniform or that uniform, or do I buy like a used Toyota or used Honda? I didn't really like that. So I decided to go on a different path against, of course, my parents, which was a big, big, big problem. I was watching this video by Dan Pena the other day. Now, I'm sure he's not everyone's cup of tea. He swears a lot. He really humiliates people from stage. But he says some things that are really, really right, that I can only appreciate from a position that I am today, which I believe you will be able to. And he showed this image of you, like just some guy standing at the beginning of his road with like a piece of paper in his hand saying goals, my goals, right? The goals are right there. You have to walk towards them. And on the side of the road, you've got like your beliefs, your family, your friends, shame, guilt, society, etc. So like you have to go against everybody, right? And the first set of people for me, that was my parents, my mom and dad. They did not get me. They really did not support my my entrepreneurial beginnings, So, but I don't know, for some reason it felt right to rebel against them this time.
I love that. Your story is so inspiring. And there's two things that I really took away from that. One, anybody listening in, if you're in a current situation of, running a business or working at a job or going to school or whatever it may be, and you're wondering what your future is going to be like, because we lie to ourselves, we deceive ourselves every single day. We're going down the same path of people that are 5 years in front of us, and we think it's going to be different. We think, no, I'm going to be making more money. I'm going to be more free. I'm going to create a better life for my family. Just look at those people that are 5 years ahead of that journey that you're on. Do you want to live that life? If not, why keep going? Why keep investing that time, energy, everything? That's one big takeaway. And that was the same thing for me growing up. It's like, yeah, there were entrepreneurs around me. Like my dad was a farmer. So he grew up on a farm, learned how to work really hard. But I didn't want that. I didn't want to be a farmer. My uncle was an electrician. My other uncle was a roofer. I'd go and work for that. I was like, man, this is really hard work. Yes, they own their own business. But again, that wasn't really my thing. I didn't really resonate with me. And then going to college didn't resonate with me. And eventually there was a mentor that told me what I just said. And they said, go out and learn from the people, study the people that have the exact life that you want, that have true wealth, not just having money, not just being in great shape, not just having great health, but somebody that has all of it, somebody that's truly living it day in and day out, and go learn from them. And that's eventually what I started doing. And listening to your story is so inspiring because in the US, we grow up and entrepreneurship is a big thing, the American dream. Like, you see all these huge influencers in the marketing, in the online, in the business space. A lot of them are from the US. You had to go against so much friction, right? Your family, everyone that you're going to school with, essentially everybody in your country and people that you looked up to were going through the military and then trying to get into a tech firm or trying to get into start building weapons. And that was just like the end all be all. That was the goal. And you at the time were literally doing whatever you had to survive and still coming out and turning into an entrepreneur. I hope a lot of my students are listening into this podcast when they have access to this, they have access to this information, they have so many people supporting them, and then they still choose not to go all in. But you had to, and by force. I believe that is one of the biggest drivers of why you're successful and why you've continued to grow such a big company today.
Well, yeah, I guess you can say I was really passionate not to end up like the people who were 5 years ahead of me, like you said. And you're absolutely right when you say that we tend to take advice from people who are not living the sort of life that we want to live, but for some reason we take their advice at face value rather than seeking advice from people who actually have what we want and doing as they say. I think that's a big clue as to what can make you successful. For me, going against my parents, going against my classmates who really didn't get why I was rebelling against that way of life. For example, my best friend, who was also named Igor, we were like tight, right? I mean, sleeping in each other's houses. We were like making plans for like 5-10 years down the road together, etc. Like the moment he found out I'm deciding to change directions, he just stopped picking up the phone. Mm-hmm. Like I even ambushed him a couple of years after I became successful. I went to his house in a different city and, I waited for him to just come out, which he did, right? I ambushed him and he saw me. He was like, damn it. Right. So, but I confronted him. I said, dude, you're my best friend. Still is my best friend, like we haven't spoken in years. Let's just sit down. What happened? Now he explained that, he got upset with me for kind of abandoning him. And I can now appreciate that. But even then, after we've just kind of made like friends again and hugged it out and everything, he didn't connect with me anymore. I was just living a totally different life and he did not want to be a part of it. I'm checking on him every now and again on Facebook. And he went on to study for 4 more years, get an engineering degree, and is now finally working at one of these firms that I mentioned earlier, and travels once a year to Europe. That's his like life. I've been to 16 trips this year alone, out of which one included shooting from a sniper rifle, and out of a helicopter using a machine gun. And 2 other trips, I went to football games in Europe. I'm a big soccer fan, so I went to Manchester for 2 games. I went to London for 2 games. And then going to Disney World in 2 weeks. I mean, this is like my normal reality. Mm-hmm. The money and the freedom. And it's all a result of refusing to be on that same path that everyone else was walking. And sometimes you have to do that. Like it's what you have to do. If everyone's zigging, you'll have to zag eventually.
Absolutely. And, people that don't fully understand what they want to do, they don't figure out what they're passionate about, but they continue to do the things that they know that they hate. And so I always say that if you don't know exactly what you want to do, just stop doing the things that you know that you don't want to do, the person that you don't want to become, the people that you don't want to be around. Because as soon as you start making those little 2 millimeter shifts and you get 1% better every single day, your life can actually start to transform quite quickly by you just eliminating the things that you know that you don't want in life. Right?
Yeah.
It's like
I mean,
people are like, oh, I want to be healthy. I don't want to be an alcoholic. I don't want to be a deadbeat like my parents, but I'm going out drinking 4 or 5 nights a week. But I'm telling myself I don't want to be like that, but I'm still going out and doing it. Right? It's like being able to be brutally honest with yourself, I think is one of the most challenging things that you can ever go through, because again, our brain plays tricks on us. We have like this monkey mind that it's like, oh, we're going to keep doing the same thing, but we're going to get different results. And like, you believe that. I believed it for years. I thought, oh, I'm just going to get lucky. You know, it's just going to come to me one day and I'm just going to like have this amazing idea that it's just going to turn into this big, you know, successful company. But I'm not doing anything to improve myself. I'm not doing anything to educate myself. I'm not reading books to help me become better. I'm not listening to podcasts. I'm not going to the events I need to go to. But I just think one day it's just going to, my buddy that I'm sitting down, that I have a beer with every Saturday night, is just going to give me some insight that's going to help me like make that abundant leap and all of a sudden be different, have a different life. It's not how it works. And so it's these little millimeter changes we start to make every day, where just eliminate the things that you know that you don't want. And that'll start getting you closer to the things that maybe you're not even consciously aware of that you actually want to be experiencing in your life. And some people listening are like, well, I don't want to go out there and make a ton of money. That's not my driver. But I would almost bet your driver is spending more time with your family and having more freedom.
more options.
More
All
options.
the shots in your life.
That's really what it comes down to, and why I went down the entrepreneurial path is because I wanted to have options. I wanted to say, you know what? Yes, I do want to live in California, and I also want to live in Idaho. So I can be next to my family, and I can also be next to my wife's family. You know, I want my son to be able to grow up with his cousins on both sides of the family. Being an entrepreneur has allowed us to have those options. We're not, you know, stuck in one area because of a job or because of a situation.
I think it's important to like if you're really looking for a shortcut to change in spite of bad habits, I think one of the most underrated things that you can do is just change your surroundings and your location. In other words, surround yourself with the kind of people that live the life that you want to live, and make sure they become the 5 of your closest friends, because you will become the product of the closest people you hang out with. So if you do go to a bar every Sunday and enjoy a few beers and watch the football game, then that's really what you are. For you to be anything else, you have to change the people you hang out with, no matter like any means necessary. Because the moment I decided to get on a different journey, and the moment I finally cut off all of my past friends who were on the journey for studying, getting a job, etc., that was the moment when I had to go seek a different companionship, different influence, different mentors, and surround myself with people who were making, you know, if I was working like 2 day jobs in Israel, I was making roughly $2,000 per month. You know, all of a sudden I'm hanging out with people who make $10,000 US per month. Then, you know, whether I like it or not, it will rub off on me, and I'll start changing my behavior, my patterns, my goals will change. I will aim higher. I will do different things every day. I will prioritize different things. All of a sudden, I'm not prioritizing, you know, getting and you know, a textbook on aerodynamics. I'm prioritizing getting a book about marketing, about writing copy, you know, a course on how to build a WordPress website, whatever at the time, right? So it changes your wiring, and that changes everything.
Absolutely. Jim Quick talks about it a lot, but he says the cells in your brain that fire together like consistently start to rewire in that process, right? So it's like when you start thinking differently and you continue to go down that rabbit hole and continue to focus and think about and problem solve in that area, you begin to become more efficient, and then your brain naturally starts to subconsciously manifest those things into your life, because that's what you are now focused on, right? You know, he had a big learning disability. They said that he was the kid with the broken brain. And so he just had to work harder on learning things about how to read, how to write, how to do math problems. He's had to keep doing it over and over and over and over and over again until finally the brain was like, oh, it's those neurotransmitters have fired enough times to actually rewire his brain to overcome those learning disabilities.
Okay.
So that is the same thing with anybody trying to change their life. If you want to change your life, literally you focusing on the right things will start to bring the right things into your life. Because then when you start to understand marketing, or you understand business, or you understand investing, or you understand trading, whatever it is you're going to be obsessed with to start changing the trajectory of your life. When you understand that, guess what? You start going to those events, you start getting around those right people. And literally the definition of a mastermind is being around people that are better than you at what you want to get good at. And then they're condensing time for you. So anytime I've gone and, I've paid tens of thousands of dollars to mentors, to events, to coaching, to whatever it may be, they've taken their 30 years of expertise and given it to me in one event or one consulting call or whatever it may be, just those fine little 2mm shifts that have allowed us to improve very, very quickly. So that'd be my challenge. Anybody listening on this podcast is, you've heard Igor's story coming from everything working against you since, from a very young age, moving to a new country, not being able to speak the language, being in debt, military being the only option. And still now have traveled to 16 different places this year. You're living on the East Coast right now. You want to go back to Europe. You have the freedom. You built this business, and you've also helped, I don't know how many thousands of people along the way experience the same freedom. So let's kind of dive into that. So when you started this business, you thought, hey, look at how much opportunity there is. How did you get started in affiliate? How did that grow? And then how have you gone out there and have helped other people do the same thing?
So when I started out, I went into network marketing because that is what Robert Kiyosaki's book said you should do if you don't have any sales skills. And that would be the first skill you should master. The other part of the book talks about real estate, and I didn't have the money. None of the people in my family at the time owned any real estate, by the way. Like, all of our friends and relatives in Israel actually lived in rented apartments and houses, same as us. So I couldn't even conceive being a landlord. And so I'm going into network marketing. I started looking it up online, and I joined this company called Global Domains International. It's basically $10 a month membership. And if you refer somebody, you get $1 per month. And if they refer 3 more people and the 3 more people bring 3 more people, then eventually you can be making like $3,000 US per month. For me at the time, a lot of money. Today, of course, doesn't even cover my mortgage. But at the time, this was like freedom. This is like that number. Oh, I'd be so happy. Now, I fail miserably with network marketing because I can't talk to people. English is not my native language. My native is Russian/Ukrainian. They're very similar. And then my second language was actually Hebrew, because I grew up from about the age of 12, I was in Israel. And so English was something I learned in English class. And I used it when I was playing video games, but I didn't use it like I use it today, where I use English today way more than I use Russian and Hebrew, because I now live in Canada and my kids go to school in English. And, pretty much I just talk to my wife in Russian at this point because she's originally from Russia. And so the way I discover affiliate marketing is, while being a network marketer, I started buying tools and trainings. And when I started buying them, I realized that somebody's making a commission off of that. Uh-huh. So in other words, like the guy who was promoting this stuff to me, which his name was Jonathan Budd, who was like a big network marketing influencer at the time, he starts releasing like information about affiliate marketing, and he starts offering affiliate programs. And all of a sudden, I start promoting one of them, and I make $124 in one day. It's basically one guy who ends up buying a dollar trial software product and then 2 more upsells, and all of a sudden I got $100. Now, to me at the time, $100 is a lot of money, and $100 from the internet is like big money, like amazing, shocking, magical money that's coming at me from the screen. So that changes everything. That changes my trajectory. Now, the problem is that for the next, I think 6 or 8 months or so, I didn't make any commissions, but I was really hooked. I was really hooked on trying to do it again. And eventually I succeeded by doing something called e-farming. Now, e-farming is the process of building email address books, or email farms, as I like to call them, and then sending out promotional messages to these email farms in the form of electronic mail, just emails, recommending products and services. So again, doing affiliate marketing. And if the products and services you're recommending are of interest to the email subscribers that you have in your email farm, then they end up buying them and you end up making a commission. So that's how I made my first commission check, and then my second, my third, etc., until I was making enough money to walk away from my job, which at the time I was actually working as a security guard at a chemical facility, a facility at which I actually worked as well before as as like an actual employee who was dealing with toxins and the chemical stuff. Like this place was actually very dangerous because we were producing pesticide liquid for agriculture, and we were shipping that to Brazil and Argentina. And my job was to actually load these jugs of poisonous green gooey thing in big, jugs like that onto like this. What do you call it? Like where the lift comes and picks it up, like
Forklift.
yeah. So the forklift would come and pick everything up. So anyway, my job was like to load them, and we were supposed to have a shower before we went home with a special chemical soap, because otherwise, like, it would get on your skin and you could get skin cancer. And there was one guy who refused to take a shower for 2 months. He would come to work, and go home because I'm guessing he was shy to take a shower in the common area.
Yeah.
And 2 months later, he actually went to see a doctor, and the doctor said he's got skin cancer. Another guy who worked at that facility for about 30 years actually ended up dying at the age of, I think, 58 or 62 from lung cancer, because he used to be my neighbor, actually. So, like, that was a proper dangerous place, and I was really happy that I didn't have to work there anymore.
Yeah. Talk about looking down the road 5 years and seeing what's going to happen to you. I mean, literally, people are dying working in that environment. I mean, if that's not a wake-up call, that's not a wake-up call, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
So you started to get some traction, and then, for somebody that doesn't have a whole lot of money, I mean, how are you building an email list? I know we build big email lists because we're spending, tens of thousands of dollars a day on our marketing. But for somebody in your position, how did you start building a list with a very limited budget?
Well, for one, I realized I needed to invest money to make money. Like, that's something I just learned over the years of trial and error. And I spent a long time initially trying to use social media to drive traffic, but I encountered two problems. One is friends and family start noticing what you do. They start asking questions, making fun of you. And, my dad kind of became my biggest naysayer. At that point, he would always like poke fun at me at family dinners. So how's that internet business going?
Yeah.
I really hated that. My brother also noticed what I was doing, my cousins, everybody. So I did not like to go to family dinners anymore. Like birthdays, weddings, whatever. I try to come up with every excuse to avoid it. The other problem is that social media, there's like a 0.01% chance you'll go viral, I'm sure, but it just never worked for me. And it was so much work. I was always like on my computer or my phone. I was trying to post stuff. I was pretending to be successful, and it just never really took off. So I switched to paid advertising. Now, the problem is with Google advertising, it was very expensive, and there was compliance issues. With other methods, they were just too technical. And eventually, I actually succeeded with something called email drops. Now, an email drop is actually the best of both worlds when you think about it, because if you're trying to get people onto your email farm, then the best kind of person you can hope to get is somebody who's already on other people's email farms and is used to opening and clicking on emails and buying products through email. So I actually ended up approaching other e-farmers and offering them like a rental fee, if you will, for them to send an email to their e-farms recommending for their email subscribers to join my e-farms. And that method was way cheaper than most traffic methods out there, but also gave me access to the best possible type of leads of email subscribers that I could hope for. And as a result, I was making money.
So you would go and find these other people that have these big email lists. You say, hey, I'm going to rent out I'll pay you whatever, $500 for your list, $100 for your list. Yep. They would send out a promotional email to opt in to your list. And then from there, then you could go and build.
That's right. So I was just basically giving them like a one-time rental fee. And for them, think about it. For them, it was like an easy yes, because let's say you're sitting with on an email farm and you've got like 10,000 contacts on your email farm. And I approach it and I say, hey, I know your email farm is 10,000 email addresses. Here's an email you can send them, and I'll give you $500. Now that person, they just made $500, no risk, no work.
Mm-hmm.
And I pay them up front for it too. They just have to copy and paste an email that I gave them. Very easy and blast. Now for me, let's say they deliver 1,500 clicks from that email drop to my e-farm, and let's say I'm able to convert half of these people to be my email subscribers. Well, I just generated 750 subscribers paying just over $1 per subscriber. Now, this is where the money math is really useful because, I don't know about other e-farmers, and I do consider myself to be one of the better ones out there, but on average, I now make roughly $27 per email subscriber per month on my e-farms. Now, would I spend $1 to get a subscriber so I can make $27 per month per subscriber? Yeah, I would. Now, I'm still at the time working a day job, so I'm not relying on this money to pay my bills. Anything I make, I put it back in the business. So I wasn't, profitable from day one, but I was growing it, and it was growing, and I was building momentum. So by the time my e-farm got to a size of 10,000 email addresses, 15,000, 20,000, I could make, like $1,000 with a single email. Just send out an email with some sort of offer. I call them done for you income streams. And, bam, $1,000. I used to have to work an entire month with overtime to make $1,000. So now, these days I just kind of expect it, kind of get spoiled, I guess.
Wow. So that was going to be my next question is, what are the economics of e-farming? Because I know that, I've seen what you do. I've seen what some other people do. Our emails for our brands generate income. I know email marketing is very powerful. What metrics are you looking for? First of all, if you're starting a business, the best investment you can ever make is investing back into your business. Just so everybody is clear on that, because I didn't do that out of the gate. As soon as I got to 10K per month, I bought a new truck. I got a bigger house. I was doing all this stupid stuff. And then I was like, I'm not saving any money, and I don't have the resources to hire the right people and pay for the next training. So now I'm doing it all myself. And I just kind of created a difficult experience for myself. Finally figured out, hey, invest back in the business, hire people that are better than you. You'll make more money. You'll do less work. You'll outsource it. You'll have more freedom. So I just want to make a note on that topic. But when you're looking at for people that do understand email and they're tuning into this, what are you looking at for economics? You said you're making $27 per month per subscribers. How many emails are you sending them? Are you writing the emails? Are you using other people's swipe files? How much work are you actually putting into this to be able to make $27 per subscriber?
Well, you're going to love this because at this point in my life, I don't write my own emails, and I don't have to. I have enough revenue so I can outsource it. But you'd be surprised how inexpensive it can get to have someone else do it for you. So I email every day, email multiple times a day, actually, depending on what's going on in what sort of promotion we're running. And I actually, most of my time these days actually goes into teaching other people how to e-farm rather than doing it myself, because I've got an engineering sort of background. So I like to think in systems. And therefore, anything I do, I tend to avoid doing it if it's all just repetitive manual effort. And I tend to steer towards things that allow me to build systems that are scalable. And therefore, e-farming is really powerful in this because let's say, hypothetically, you just started e-farming. You've got an e-farm the size of about 1,000 email addresses. So it takes you about 10, maybe 15 minutes to sit down, write an email to that e-farm, hit send. And if you're using an e-automation tool, you can have that tool automatically email everybody on your e-farm. So you just write the email once, load it once, hit send, and the software goes and copies that email 1,000 times and issues 1,000 copies. So that's very cool. That's leverage. Now imagine you make only 10 cents per email subscriber per month, which means on a e-farm the size of about 1,000 people, 1,000 email addresses, you're going to be making about $100. Now, you keep growing it, okay? You grow it and you grow it and you grow it. Now you're at 10,000 email addresses. What's really cool is that it's going to take you just the exact same 10 to 15 minutes to write another email, load that email into the software, and the software now will dispatch it 10,000 times. Let's say nothing changed, and you're still making a measly 10 cents per email subscriber per month. But now your e-farm is 10,000 email addresses. So now you're making $1,000, right? And now imagine you scaled it to 50,000 email addresses, 100,000 email addresses. I know a guy who has like 2 million email addresses. So even if he makes like a cent per month, he's still going to be making a lot of money. But the reality is that if you just stick to it and you follow the right principles, which I'll discuss in my book, which we'll talk about in a minute, your average income per email subscriber per month will be much greater than 10 cents.
So how long did it, I mean, 27 per email is like the highest that I've ever heard. So how long did it take you to get there? And are you staying in certain niches to get that higher payout? Are you running multiple offers to the same list? Like what is that kind of, and I know you go over it in your book, which we're going to drop the link. And for any of you guys interested in what Igor with his business with the e-farming, definitely grab the link to the book below here. But just so, people that are already doing email and are like, whoa, my mind's being blown right now, $27 per email. My mind's blown. I want to hear like how long it took you to get there and how all of that plays out. Is that your educational platform? Is that other educational platforms? Is it, just blow our minds a little bit more right now.
Sure. So a few advanced, so this is obviously for anyone who's never done e-farming before, this is not going to mean much to you, but if you're already doing e-farming or any kind of email marketing, here are a few key things that allowed me to propel my average income per subscriber per month. One thing, start promoting stuff that's more expensive, meaning that I started out, I was promoting things for $17, $50, $90, $100. Now, I'll have things there for 1,000, 2, 5, 10, 20,000. And you can find affiliate products who actually have this sort of price point. In addition, just because the first, so don't think of things just as a product, think of things as funnels, which means if you are promoting something, don't just get paid on the one product that's like facing you, right? There's going to be more stuff on the back end. So negotiate deals where you get paid on the back end as well. For example, and I do have my own affiliate programs now where I have other people promoting. So as we speak, there's actually somebody promoting me as right now, and they've done about, just notifications on my phone kind of showing, they've done about 20 or 30 units while we were chatting. So that person actually is going to be getting from me 50% on the first offer, which is the $1,000 offer, and 50% on the following offer that's about $497. So by doing so, even if only 30% of the people that they referred to me take the next one, there's still a big chunk of money. So more expensive stuff, get paid on the whole funnel, not just on the front-facing offer. Recurring stuff that goes without saying, that make one sale, but get paid over and over and over and over again. There's some things that I promoted years ago. I mean, I'm talking years ago. They're still paying me $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month like clockwork, just because the users are referred to those products, usually software products. They continue to use the software. And the software company, because I referred the sale, they keep paying me 30%, 50%, 40%. So that's really cool. The other thing is when you have a list, you have a big, e-farm, a big email list, then you participate in, say, a competition of any kind, like somebody's launching an offer, oftentimes you can score a bonus. For example, I just received a $15,000 bonus on top of all the commissions that I've made by promoting someone else's product and by landing in the top 5 or the top 3 for that promotion. In addition, once you've got the affiliate offers or the done-for income streams that you're promoting, you can then stack your own stuff on top. And this is something that I've always wanted to do, because coming from a family where, like I said, my mom's a music teacher, my dad's mom is a school principal, my mom's dad is a teacher. So I think I just liked teaching. So, I started participating not just in when I was going through other people's coaching programs and seminars and things like that, I actually liked the idea that, I could be on that stage teaching people when I have some credibility, and that's exactly what I've done. So I ended up building a big business, not just with the affiliate income streams, but also with my own stuff. And I decided to teach people the thing that changed my life. And that's why I decided to start this company. We call it the List Building Lifestyle, where we teach people how to build email lists, how to e-farm, how to promote products. And that company has grew into its own like monster, you know?
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. And when we're talking more about like kind of the economic side of things, what are you looking to have as like an open rate and a click-through rate? How are you keeping your email servers healthy so that those do stay high?
Yeah. So as far as open rate, I'm aiming for at least 20%. But I also do use advanced tricks such as, resending to unopens, which would get me another 10, 15%. So collectively, I'll go to 30%. But a really good email that gets a lot of attention, I'll probably get like a 30 out of the gate, maybe 20% more in the unopens. I think the big key for keeping the list healthy, though, again, it's an advanced trick, but it's segmentation. Segmentation is a big one, meaning that if somebody's opening your emails, if somebody's clicking on your links, you want to segment them and mail them more to increase your averages. If somebody's a buyer and not just a prospect, you want to segment them out. If somebody's not opening your emails for 30 days, stop mailing them, because you're just getting kind of penalized for dead, no response, so to speak. So a lot of our, like, my email guy who runs my list, he has to watch that, and he has to, properly tag people. Now, the other thing is you have to keep things relevant. You have to really understand your market, and because when you mail about the things they really want to buy, they open more, they click more, they buy more. But when you're mailing things that you think they might want to buy, or things that make you feel good but not necessarily exactly what the market wants, you might not get the response that you're looking for. For example, in the weight loss market, there's a reason why all these supplement companies are kicking ass, because it's a bottle with a bunch of pills that promise that if you eat the pill, you lose weight. Now, we all know that's not going to happen. We all know that's not really how you lose weight. We all know you have to watch your calories, you have to go to the gym, you have to eliminate sugar out of your diet, at least to an extent, yada, yada, yada. But it's not about what you need to do. It's about what people actually want to buy. There's a reason why people buy treadmills. So a great example of how you learn about your market. There was this company, they were selling treadmills or some kind of elliptical device. And they put together an infomercial, and it was selling well, but their refund rate was like 40%. So they were trying to fight the refund rate, and they were eventually able to get it down to 10%. Do you know what made the difference? They made one change. They didn't change their marketing. They didn't change their customer service, nothing. They changed the way the handles on that elliptical were structured. Before, they were structured down. So the handle was pointing down. And it turned out that when people threw their clothes on the elliptical, it kept sliding down. So they flipped it and they made it point up. And the refund rate got down to 10% because the clothes stayed on the elliptical.
Wow.
Now, that just tells you what people want to buy and why they want to buy it, right? Yeah, initially you get it to lose the weight, but eventually, it's just a rack.
Wow. Wild. It's funny you say that, because I remember growing up, my mom and different family members have all these crazy workout machines they got off the internet. And then you go in there and there'd be a box on it, and then there'd be stuff hanging off of it, and then it just stayed there forever. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
So for, business owners that are on here listening that are running emails or wanting to grow that, they're wanting to increase their sales, what's some, insight and expert hacks you have for them to be able to implement into their lists and with their autoresponders right now?
There's something that is an extremely advanced technique which really helped me boost my sales. It's something called the trigger sequence. So what you do is you run a promotion to your list as usual, but then anyone who clicks on the link to go to check out the sales page, what you do is you automatically tag them, and you add them to a sequence you write ahead of time where, let's say your offer is a 48-hour special. Let's say it's some kind of product you already have. You build a separate page and you say, for the next 48 hours, I'm going to give you 50% off. So what you do is you build a 48-hour email sequence where in those 48 hours, where other people would have probably only sent 2 emails, you send 8 emails. 8 emails in 48 hours. And all these emails are just point blank, aggressive, go buy this. And all the reasons why you should buy this, and all the reasons why you should buy this right now. And then towards the end of it, you're just pushing for the urgency of it and saying the offer is expiring like an hour before, 3 hours before, 5 hours before. So what's going to happen is somebody will see the initial email, click on the link, immediately get into that sequence and immediately start getting emails to just push them to buy. And by doing so, you're going to see first that sequence is going to get about 60% open rate, which is great for you because it gives you great credibility and points with Gmail and other services. But in addition, that sequence will be closing way more sales for you because it's just going to be kind of reminding people to buy. I kind of by accident really discovered that when I was participating in an affiliate promotion, I sent out 6 emails on the last day. And on the last day, I made just as many sales as the whole 6 days before. So I said, you know what if I just employ this as a technique, as a strategy? And if I'm promoting something like, let's say my own product, let's say this book even, I've mailed my list, like the people who didn't buy anything from me on Friday. I said, hey, go get this book. I have like 50 copies that I just printed. And then once they click on it, immediately they get into a 24-hour sequence with 6 emails where I'm just telling them about the book. I tell them about what I'm sharing on page 18 or page 64, the bonuses I'm going to give them, etc. And all of a sudden, on Friday, barely any sales. Come Saturday, Sunday, just bam, 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 bam. So people need more than one exposure to an offer to buy it. Back in the day, somebody used to say there's like they need 7 exposures on average. That's bullshit. More like 700 these days because the cash and spend is just not there. So whatever the fears that people used to have about mailing too often, I think you can just forget about it. You can just mail often. And your list will tolerate it, especially if they're already opening, clicking on your stuff.
Beautiful. Well, and to that point, when you're hitting like on that last day, 6 or 8 emails, boom, 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 is that hurting your open rate? Or these people are still opening, and by them opening, it's triggering to send the next email?
Yeah, exactly.
So if they don't open it so let's say they go and they go to click on the link, but for some reason they don't check out, it puts them into that sequence.
Yeah.
And then you start sending them the 24-hour, the 48-hour rapid. If they're not opening those emails, then is the next one not being triggered? Do they have to open in order for the next one to be triggered to keep your open rate high enough?
No, it's just that sequence is now going out. And so even if they don't open any of them besides the last one, they still are going to see 5 emails from you saying something about your book. So oftentimes people want to buy your stuff. It's just they get distracted. They have last minute procrastination come up. They're sitting downstairs. So I'm in my basement right now and I really want to buy this, but my credit card is upstairs in my wallet. So I have to go walk there. I'm not going to walk there right now. I don't want to do it. There's so many different things. And
for sure,
the way you overcome that is reminders, urgency.
Powerful. Well, man, I've learned so much from this podcast. I really appreciate you hopping on. We've already done business together and we haven't even really spoken together. That's how powerful the online internet world is, and putting the right people in the right place to make these things happen. We've built out an entire JV arm of our business to keep these relationships going, promote other people's stuff, make sure our stuff is always being promoted, make sure other people are promoting our stuff, and just a way to generate a whole nother stream of income. So for those of you that are also listening that have a giant email list and you've only been promoting your offer, you should really think about checking out what Igor is doing, because you can monetize your big existing list now with other offers. So we're going to put the link to his book down below here. Grab that link, get that book. It's a free book, right? They just pay for shipping. So it's what, $6?
Yeah, so this is the book. It's called List Building Lifestyle Confessions of an Email Millionaire. I happen to have a podcast under the same name as well. And if you go to igorsbook.com, you can get it for free. I'll print it for free for you. and I'll ship it to you. I'll just ask you to chip it and shipping and handling. The shipping and handling fee if you're in the US is $10. If you're outside of the US, anywhere in the world, it's $20. Now, in addition to giving you the physical version of this book, I'll also give you the digital version you can start reading right away. I'll give you the audible version you can listen to in your car when working out or walking your dog or whatever. And I'll also throw in $3,200 worth of free bonuses, including capture page templates, email templates, traffic training, and a bunch of other stuff that's going to really help you kickstart your list building. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to ethically bribe you to get the book. As simple as that. Plus, you'll end up on my email list and you'll be able to spy on me and see how I do things. And so if you want to model it, by all means, go ahead. Pretty much the entire industry at this point spies on me. So either you can go get this book on Amazon, which you can. In fact, if you've got Kindle Unlimited subscription, you can get it for free on Amazon. But I encourage you to go and get it on igorsbook.com simply because you're going to get a lot of the bonuses that you don't get on Amazon and the Audible version for free, which is on Audible. I think it's sold for $15 or $20.
There you go, guys. You heard it here. The email list master just dropped some absolute knowledge bombs on the Abundant Sleep podcast. Igor, thank you so much for hopping on. Your story is so inspiring. I'm going to go back and listen to this again and take some notes out of this episode because there's a lot of things I want to implement into our business right now. So again, thank you so much for being here. We'll put the link below here, guys, so that you can go and grab his book. Take advantage of this. There's so much value in that book. It's going to go in depth, whether you already have a list or if you want to start building a list, start another side income, go check it out. Thank you so much for being here, my man. And we'll be chatting soon.
My pleasure.